Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that, we having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the king, the public weal, peace and tranquility of the island, and the uniting and knitting together of the hearts of all persons and estates within the same, and true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
May I be seated? This honorable house now resume its sitting. I wish to sincerely welcome all members to the sitting of the Honorable House of Representatives for today, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026. Today, we continue with the sectoral debate and we'll have presentations from Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects, and Member of Parliament for St. Catharines South Central, Dr. the Honorable Andrew Wheatley. The Member of Parliament for St. Mary's Southeastern will also follow, Mr. Christopher Brown. Oh, sorry, we have an addition. The Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Eastern will follow, Dr. Dayton Campbell, and then the Member of Parliament for St. Mary Southeastern, Mr. Christopher Brown. I trust that the presenters today will uphold the generally high standard of presentations which have been made in this debate to date, and encourage all members to conduct themselves in accordance with the established rules of this honorable house. I wish to welcome the constituents from the constituencies of St. Catharines South Central, St. Mary, and Southeast Westmoreland. I see the St. Mary Southeastern and Westmoreland Eastern. And that is why our gallery looks so full today. These persons are all here to support their respective members of Parliament. We appreciate your attendance and hope that you will enjoy the sitting and be informed by being here for these proceedings. I see beside me Senator Keisha Anderson here to give support as well, and former Member of Parliament, Michelle Charles, who is also here listening in and giving support for today's debates. I see some students in the gallery as well, so let me make especially welcome the students who are in attendance from the constituency of St. Mary Southeast, namely students from Anotta Bay High School, St. Mary Technical High School, and Marymount High School. Let me also, and I'm using this to help both sides, the presenters. When you hear these long welcomes by the speaker, you know you're getting no extra time. I would like to welcome the son of the Member of Parliament from St. Mary Southeast, young William, who is in attendance with us here today. In addition to all the executive members and constituency councillors for all the representatives presenting today. As usual, these proceedings are being broadcasted live by PBCJ, and we welcome those joining us via all the various platforms as well as the various social media outlets. Thank you. Call of the roll.
Mr. Clark, Mr. Green, Dr. Holness, Dr. Chang, Mrs. Williams, Mr. Bartlett, Ms. Grange, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Montague, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Charles Jr., Mr. Morgan, Ambassador Marks, Mr. Samuda, Dr. Wheatley, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Terry Long, Mr. Whittle, Mrs. Dalrymple Filbert, Miss Morrison, Miss Lee, Mr. Donovan Williams, Mr. Main, Miss Crawford, Mr. Delroy Williams, Miss Hamilton, Mr. Sivright, Mr. Azan, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown Burke, Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Bunting, Miss Burchell, Dr. Campbell, Mr. Cousins, Mr. Crawford, Miss Daly, Dr. Dawes, Mr. Golding, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Hales, Mr. Hines, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Miss Jess, Mrs. Malahoo Fort, Mrs. Miller Bennett, Mr. Morris, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Newell, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Miss Perkis, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Dr. Russell, Miss Shaw, Mr. Smith, Mr. Dwayne Vaz, and Mr. Warmington. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. House Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to welcome those in the gallery also, to the members who will be presenting this afternoon. The Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects, and Member of Parliament for St. Catherine South Central, Dr. Honorable Andrew Wheatley, as well as the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Eastern, Dr. Dayton Campbell, and the Member of Parliament for St. Mary Southeastern, Mr. Christopher Brown. Madam Speaker, I ask that you suspend all items up until public business so we can take the sectoral debate early.
Members, as is customary in the sectoral debate, we ask that the items on the agenda be suspended to facilitate the presentations first. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I wish to welcome for his sectoral presentation the Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects, and also Member of Parliament for St. Catherine South Central, Dr. the Honorable Andrew Wheatley, for his presentation.
Madam Speaker, permission to speak from a seat that is not my own.
Permission granted, Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I rise with gratitude and with purpose. I give thanks to God for this opportunity to once again stand before this honorable House. This time in a new season, with a new mandate, and with a conviction about what must be built for Jamaica's future. Madam Speaker, let me take this opportunity to especially recognize my family, my anchor in every season, my constituents, the industrious and resilient men and women of St. Catherine South Central. Madam Speaker, this is my 23rd year as an elected representative on broken stand. And I must extend to not only my constituents, but where I started in the Nagwe division as a councillor. You have my commitment, my gratitude, and my continued dedication. Our Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Ones, my cabinet colleagues, and all members of this honorable House, officers, delegates, and members of the Jamaica Labour Party, my councillors, Councillor Jennifer Hull, Councillor Mark McLean, and Councillor Sidney Roman, my constituency executive and constituency office staff, other members of my personal and support staff, and my advisors. And I want to make special mention that we have in attendance members of my pastoral council, the men who have guided the spiritual transformation of St. Catherine South Central through a very special initiative, transformation through prayer. The permanent secretary and the hard-working team at the Office of the Prime Minister, the civil servants, technical officers, divisional heads, and agency leaders who have given unstinted service across a portfolio of enormous breadth and complexity. They are indeed the engine behind everything I will be announcing today. I also wish to acknowledge the heads and staff of the agencies and entities within my portfolio responsibility. The Jamaica Social Investment Fund, the Scientific Research Council, the National Commission on Science and Technology, iSense, the Office of the Information Commissioner, the CERT Division, the National AI Task Force, and the Technology Recovery and Resilience Task Force. Your work has been, in the truest sense of the word, extraordinary. Madam Speaker, I have had the privilege of standing before this honorable House as a portfolio minister before. But I want to be direct with this honorable House today. This portfolio, in this moment, carries an opportunity that I believe is without precedent in recent Jamaican governance. The global economy has fundamentally reorganized itself around knowledge, data, and the ability to find solutions with speed and precision. Countries, Madam Speaker, that build the infrastructure to solve problems and to convert their local challenges into exportable answers are pulling ahead. Countries that do not are falling behind, not slowly, Madam Speaker, but rapidly so. Jamaica has extraordinary talent, and the world has confirmed it. On Olympic podiums, in global music, in boardrooms and laboratories abroad, we are a nation of remarkable human capacity. But there's a serious gap, Madam Speaker, between who we are and what we invest in becoming. At 0.07% of GDP, Jamaica's investment in research and development is less than 1/10 of the international benchmark for developing countries. We have a food import bill exceeding some US $2 billion annually. Yet, we are a nation with some of the most fertile land and agricultural expertise in this hemisphere. We continue to experience the outward migration of scientists, engineers, and innovators, not because there's no talent here in Jamaica, but because there has not been a system here to sustain them and deploy their capabilities. Madam Speaker, we are a cultural giant. However, we have been a research and innovator sleeper. Madam Speaker, this ends today. Madam Speaker, I present this sectoral debate under the theme, Growth through Research, Innovation, and Technology, GRIT. Not just as a title, Madam Speaker, but as a declaration of intent, because GRIT is precisely what this moment demands of Jamaica. The mandate of this portfolio is not simply to manage agencies or process legislation. The mandate, Madam Speaker, my mandate, is to build the architecture that converts Jamaica's talent into Jamaica's prosperity. Research, Madam Speaker, for our development. Innovation in service of our people. Technology as the engine of growth. Not for its own sake, but because it solves real problems for real Jamaicans. Madam Speaker, what I offer today is the vision. We are building to make research, innovation, and technology and to the Jamaican Strategy Plan 2026 to 2035 and its governing 2026 to 2035 and its governing framework 2026 to 2035 and its governing framework, the House of Innovation. Madam Speaker, the House of Innovation is not a building. It is a blueprint. Jamaica's first unified mission-driven framework for converting knowledge, research, and innovation into national development outcomes. It is the governance model, Madam Speaker, and operational vision for a transformed science and technology ecosystem. This House, Madam Speaker, has 4 structural components. The roof, that speaks to governance. A revamped National Commission on Science and Technology, operating with political legitimacy, commercial speed, and delivery accountability. A 3-layer structure chaired at the apex by the Prime Minister himself through a Ministerial Innovation Council. The pillars, 7 nationally determined strategic priorities, each anchored to a pressing national challenge: food security, climate resilience, biotechnology, the creative industries, circular economy, digital transformation and AI, and innovation ecosystem development. 7 problems, Madam Speaker, 7 different mandates. The floor, financial stability. A blended finance architecture, Madam Speaker, targeting US $350 million over 10 years. Secured through multilateral partnerships, private sector co-investment, and Government of Jamaica's commitment designed, Madam Speaker, to raise Jamaica's research and development investment from 0.07% to 1.5% of GDP by 2030. The foundation, Madam Speaker, our human capital pipeline. From the Nurturing Early Scientific Thinking NEST program in early childhood institutions, through the secondary and tertiary pipeline to entrepreneurship and commercialization training. Madam Speaker, every Jamaican child deserves to grow up thinking like a problem solver. Yes. Madam Speaker, 1.5% of GDP in research and innovation investment by 2035 is the threshold at which brain drain reverses. Knowledge output becomes exportable, and Jamaica earns its position as the undisputed science and technology hub of the Caribbean. Madam Speaker, this plan was developed through rigorous national stakeholder engagement, culminating in the Ministerial Forum on Science, Technology and Innovation for National Development held in March of this year. It is aligned to Vision 2030, to our National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy, to the AI Task Force's recommendations, to the UNESCO AI Readiness Assessment, and to our UNESCO Goal-Spin commitments. Madam Speaker, I'm committing this plan to Cabinet, and I am committing this government to its execution. The full details of this strategy, Madam Speaker, will be made available shortly. Madam Speaker, the House of Innovation requires a transformed institution to drive it. The National Commission on Science and Technology will be revamped legislatively and operationally to serve, Madam Speaker, as the executing authority for this plan at scale. What Jamaica needs is not another advisory body. We need an institution with the speed of a commercial enterprise, the accountability of a public body, and the authority to convene government, universities, private industry, and the research community around common national missions. Madam Speaker, the governance design is complete. The legislative work is in progress. A dedicated cabinet submission will follow. Madam Speaker, the Scientific Research Council is one of Jamaica's best kept secrets. Not for much longer though. It will play a pivotal role in the execution activities of the House of Innovation. But let me speak more about what SRC has done to date. Madam Speaker, in the review period, the SRC delivered results that speak directly to Jamaica's most pressing development challenges. In agriculture and food security, the SRC produced some 30,000 tissue culture plants, yam plantlets, pineapple, and Irish potato to strengthen domestic food production. They have propagated some 2,000 mangosteen plants in partnership with the Ministry of Agriculture and advanced mutation breeding research for disease-resistant coffee, improved ginger lines, and faster maturing sweet potatoes. Madam Speaker, in communities, 52 residents in Watermouth, St. Catherine were trained in pineapple farming and juice processing. And 37 hot pepper farmers received training in jerk seasoning production to reduce wastage and increase income. Madam Speaker, this is research for development in its most direct and tangible form. The SRC's Analytical Services Department, the backbone of Jamaica's public health and trade infrastructure, completed over 11,000 laboratory analysis between April and December of 2025. Protecting, Madam Speaker, food safety, drinking water quality, and export integrity. Major laboratory modernization was completed in the last financial year, with 3 new high-precision instruments deployed: a discrete analyzer for water quality surveillance, an ICP-OAS for heavy metal and environmental monitoring, and an FTNIR spectrometer for food authenticity and adulteration detection. Jamaica's laboratory results remain, Madam Speaker, ISO IEC 17025 compliant, internationally recognized and trusted by our trading partners. On the innovation and enterprise side, the SRC developed 24 new food products and 2 personal care formulations, produced 115 nutrition facts panels, strengthening consumer protection, Madam Speaker, and trained 87 entrepreneurs in science-based development. The food pilot plant achieved a 12.5% increase in production output and a 283% increase in drying and milling volumes, directly supporting, Madam Speaker, 68 MSMEs. In science education, 584 CSEC students from 100 schools received SRC workshops. 120 teachers were trained in science process skills, and science clubs are now active in over 100 schools with a focus on rural communities. Madam Speaker, looking ahead to financial year 2026-27, the SRC will implement a laboratory information management system to digitalize its operation, launch a digital solution program for MSMEs, expand its accredited analytical scope, and launch, Madam Speaker, the Conversation in Science podcast, a new public engagement initiative to deepen science literacy and support evidence-based national dialogue. Madam Speaker, I want to signal one important commitment. The SRC Act, which was enacted in 1960, before Jamaica's modern governance frameworks, before our STNI policy, before biotechnology, before digital transformation and climate resilience became operational realities for a national research institution. Madam Speaker, Jamaica cannot build a 21st century innovation economy on a 1960 legislative framework. And so, Madam Speaker, a comprehensive review of the SRC Act will be undertaken to modernize and urbanize it with current governance, accountability, and scientific mandates. Ensure, Madam Speaker, that the SRC has the legal foundation to fully execute its expanded role in the House of Innovation. Madam Speaker, I now want to talk about a little-known initiative called NEST, Nurturing Early Scientific Thinking. It is Jamaica's structured approach to embedding the foundations of inquiry, problem-solving, and evidence-based thinking into the earliest years of a child. It works by building the capacity of educators in early childhood institutions to deliver play-based science experiences, supported by STEM activity book and hands-on STEM kits designed specifically for the early childhood context. Madam Speaker, I want to show the House one of the science kit, Curious Minds. It's an activity kit that is geared towards stimulating the minds of our young children, especially those at the early childhood stage. And I just want to give us a little glimpse. Boy, it's all over the place. But Madam Speaker, you can see the content. geared towards stimulating the minds of our young people to start to think outside of the box. Madam Speaker, next targets our youngest children, because far too long we have sought to embed and grow scientific thinking at the secondary and the tertiary level. This approach, in my estimation, is wrong, Madam Speaker, and we must start cultivating scientific minds at the basic and the primary level. Madam Speaker, the NEST pilot conducted between February and June 2025 engaged 25 early childhood institutions in Kingston and St. Andrew, deliberately selected to include schools in zones of special operations, low-performing institutions, and compliant schools. Madam Speaker, 25 educators were trained through a training of trainers model delivered by Early Childhood Commission's officers, with mentorship support provided through the Association of Science Teachers of Jamaica. The evaluation, Madam Speaker, is positive. The evidence base is built. The scale-up plan is ready. Madam Speaker, we are now rolling out NEST nationally. The plan targets 500 early childhood institutions across all 7 education regions and all 14 parishes to be reached by the end of 2026. Madam Speaker, rollout has already begun in Kingston, St. Andrew, Portland, St. Mary, and St. Thomas. St. Anne, Trelawney, St. James, and Nova and Westmoreland will follow, and St. Catherine with some 107 early childhood institutions, and Clarendon will complete the national coverage by year's end. Madam Speaker, every region, every parish, 500 institutions. Because, Madam Speaker, the child who grows up asking why and how is the entrepreneur, the innovator, and the problem solver Jamaica needs. And that journey, Madam Speaker, begins not at university, but at HTV. Madam Speaker, the vision I have just described does not stand alone. It stands on the shoulders of partnership that have been built deliberately and carefully over time. Madam Speaker, I want to take a moment to recognize 2 institutions whose continued commitment has been instrumental in shaping the science and innovation agenda now before this House. Madam Speaker, the Inter-American Development Bank has been a steadfast partner in Jamaica's development journey, and its engagement with this portfolio has deepened significantly as we have developed the National ST&I Strategic Plan and the House of Innovation Framework. I would also like to mention the Development Bank of Jamaica, who has equally been a consistent champion of the innovation ecosystem, providing financing pathways for entrepreneurs, MSMEs, and startups that translate research into commercial reality. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to note that representatives of the Inter-American Development Bank are present in this honorable House today. We have Carissa Ribeiro, IDB Country COO, and Ms. Nayata Tate, Sector Specialist in Technology and Innovation, with us this afternoon, Madam Speaker. Their presence, Madam Speaker, is a signal of confidence. Confidence in the seriousness of Jamaica's commitment to this agenda, and confidence, Madam Speaker, in the partnership that will help us execute it. On behalf of this government, I extend our sincere appreciation for their continued investment in Jamaica's future. We look forward to deepening that collaboration in the years ahead. Madam Speaker, I now move to a relatively new and sometimes contentious area of discussion, and that is nuclear energy. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's energy future demands that we think beyond the conventional. Hurricane Melissa did not simply damage our electricity infrastructure. It exposed, Madam Speaker, the structural vulnerability of an energy system overwhelmingly dependent on imported fossil fuels. Madam Speaker, every disruption costs us, every price spike costs us, every hurricane season costs us. The path, Madam Speaker, to genuine energy sovereignty runs through diversification. And so, Madam Speaker, Jamaica is now taking seriously an option that small island developing states have historically deferred: nuclear energy. Madam Speaker, let me be clear about where we stand. Jamaica is not building a nuclear power plant at this time. What Jamaica is doing is something equally important. We are building the knowledge base, the institutional readiness, and the international partnership that any responsible nation must have before that decision can ever be properly made. Madam Speaker, we are doing the work deliberately, transparently, with full scientific rigor. Madam Speaker, in October 2024, the government of Jamaica executed a memorandum of understanding with two of Canada's premier federal nuclear institutions, Canadian Nuclear Laboratories and Atomic Energy of Canada Limited. The MOU was witnessed by Prime Minister Holness and covers civil nuclear power, explicitly, Madam Speaker, including small modular reactors, as well as nuclear medicine, industrial and agricultural applications as well. So I don't want us to get caught up in a one-dimensional way of thinking, assuming when we talk about nuclear sciences, it's all about nuclear weapons or nuclear reactors. Medicine, agriculture also are part of the nuclear discussion. Madam Speaker, Canadian Nuclear Laboratories operates the Chalk River facility, one of the world's most advanced nuclear research centers. And both institutions are actively engaged in Canada's own domestic SMR program. Jamaica now, Madam Speaker, as a formal nuclear partner at the highest level of international nuclear capability. Madam Speaker, the International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences, ICENS, is Jamaica's existing platform for this work. Through the Slowpoke Research Reactor at UWI, ICENS maintains an active IAEA reporting function, provides environmental monitoring and radiation protection services, and has for decades been Jamaica's bridge to the international nuclear community. The Nuclear Energy Working Committee, Madam Speaker, has been reconstituted under this portfolio with a clear mandate to progress the structured assessment of nuclear energy's viability for Jamaica and to advance, Madam Speaker, the foundational actions that the program requires. The question is, what are those foundational actions? Madam Speaker, they are not capital intensive. They are institutional, legislative, and diplomatic. They include, Madam Speaker, the development of a public consultation and sensitization program. Because, Madam Speaker, no responsible government announces a nuclear energy intention without first engaging its people honestly. The initiation, Madam Speaker, of negotiations for a nuclear cooperation agreement with Canada, which is required, Madam Speaker, to unlock the full technology transfer scope of the MOU. And of course, Madam Speaker, formal notification to the IAEA of Jamaica's intent to examine small reactor installation, which of course, Madam Speaker, will unlock the IAEA's assistance at no direct cost to Jamaica. And finally, Madam Speaker, the drafting of a Jamaican nuclear regulatory framework. Because before any commercialization decision is made, Madam Speaker, Jamaica must have the independent regulatory architecture to oversee. Madam Speaker, all 5 programs documents underpin Jamaica's nuclear assessment, converging on small modular reactors as the appropriate technology for a grid of Jamaica scale, and on a build, own, operate, transfer model with a power purchase agreement as a commercial structure. Keeping capital costs off the government's balance sheet while securing clean, reliable baseload power, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is not a fantasy. This is the energy pathway that serious small nations are pursuing. And Jamaica, with its existing research infrastructure at ISENS, its partnership with Canada, and its reconstituted working committee, will seek to position itself to be among them. Madam Speaker, I turn now to how Jamaica will hone, protect, and secure its data. Because in the digital age, Madam Speaker, data sovereignty is not optional. Madam Speaker, data is the infrastructure of the 21st century. Just as we would not tolerate a foreign power owning our roads or our water supply, we cannot be passive consumers of our own national data. Data sovereignty, Madam Speaker, is Jamaica's right to control, govern, and benefit from the data generated within our borders. It is not a technical concept. It is a national security and a national development imperative. Madam Speaker, the Data Protection Act passed in 2020 was one of the most important pieces of legislation this government has placed on the books. It established a framework for how personal data in Jamaica is collected, used, and protected. It created, Madam Speaker, the Office of the Information Commissioner as our national data protection regulator. It is a law that we should all be proud of. But, Madam Speaker, I'm going to be direct with this House. 5 years after the Data Protection Act was passed, the enforcement provisions have still not been fully activated. The very provisions, Madam Speaker, designed to hold data controllers accountable and protect every Jamaican whose personal information is collected and processed. We have the law, Madam Speaker, but what we have not yet done is fully enforced it. And there's a structural reason for this, Madam Speaker. The OIC was established with an interim organizational structure that was not adequate for the full scope of its regulatory mandate. Functional areas unprovided for, staffing below the required level, and key officers without the specialized technical training that compliance oversight demands. Madam Speaker, the OIC has worked with what it has, building the framework and running a growing public awareness program. But, Madam Speaker, awareness without enforcement is regulation. It is simply education. The government has heard what the OIC has said, and we have acted. The OIC's full requested budget for this financial year has been approved. That approval, Madam Speaker, unlocks the resources the office needs to begin the restructuring work that has been long overdue. In addition, Madam Speaker, an OIC Data Protection Working Group has been formally constituted and mandated, bringing together, Madam Speaker, the technical expertise, legal knowledge, and operational capacity required to guide the restructuring of the office and to accelerate its readiness for full enforcement. That, Madam Speaker, is work that is underway at the moment. On the matter of the Data Protection Oversight Committee, Madam Speaker, members have been selected and the approval process is in its final stages. But let me be candid about the delays. Madam Speaker, the legislation requires the committee to include a retired High Court justice, a well-intentioned provision that in practice created a significant bottleneck. Finding a willing and qualified retired justice proved far more difficult than the law assumes. And I want to signal to the House that this warrants legislative review. The current formulation, Madam Speaker, places the timeliness of a critical governance appointment at the mercy of a very small pool of eligible candidates. Madam Speaker, with the budget secured, the working group active, and the oversight committee appointment in its final stages, the OIC is now on a clear path to becoming what it was always designed to be: a fully functioning, technically capable, enforcement-ready National Data Protection Authority. And when that authority is in place, Madam Speaker, the enforcement provision of the Data Protection Act will be activated. Data controllers will register, comply, and be held accountable. Jamaicans, Madam Speaker, who trust organizations with their personal data have a right to expect that trust to be protected, not just in law, but in practice, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Hurricane Melissa exposed a vulnerability that digital government must confront. What happens to the critical records and systems that underpin national life, such as land titles, business registration, court records, government databases, when physical infrastructure is destroyed or compromised? The answer this administration is introducing, Madam Speaker, is the concept of the data embassy. Madam Speaker, data embassy is a diplomatic arrangement backed by international treaty in which a host country grants a sending state full legal sovereignty over servers physically located on its soil. The data held there is inviolable. It cannot be seized, accessed, or compromised by the host state. It is in every legal sense sovereign Jamaican territory. It's a concept, Madam Speaker, that has been pioneered in other jurisdictions and is gaining traction among small states globally. But it is this government that is bringing it to Jamaica, Madam Speaker, shaping it for our context and committing to explore both bilateral and regional frameworks that will protect our national digital community, our continuity. Madam Speaker, I'm directing my team at the OPM to begin that work now. Our data, Madam Speaker, is our sovereignty. We will protect both. Madam Speaker, this conversation about digital sovereignty and data resilience has been a natural companion in the visionary work being championed by my colleague, the Honorable Minister of Efficiency, Innovation, and Digital Transformation, Minister Audrey Marks, around the creation of digital twins for government systems. But, Madam Speaker, digital twin, for those less familiar with the concept, is a complete, real-time digital replica of a physical system, a government ministry, a hospital network, a utility grid, a port. It allows planners, Madam Speaker, emergency responders, and policymakers to stimulate, test, and respond to scenarios before they happen in the real world. Madam, my colleague, Ambassador Marks, has been a compelling advocate for this capability as part of Jamaica's digital transformation and resilience strategy. But here's the critical point. A digital twin of a Jamaican government system, by its very nature, may need to exist and operate on infrastructure located outside of Jamaica's border. To ensure it survives the very disaster scenario it is designed to help us navigate. Without the legal framework of a data embassy, that replica of our government system sits in a foreign jurisdiction with no guarantee of sovereignty, no protection from seizure, and no legal basis for Jamaica to control it. The data embassy is not simply a backup solution. For the realization of digital twins at a national scale, the data embassy is the legal and sovereign foundation without which the entire architecture is exposed. Madam Speaker, I now address Jamaica's national security in cyberspace. Our laws, our posture, our strategy, and the governance body that brings it all together. And so, Madam Speaker, I want to be very precise about what this section covers. This section covers. Cybersecurity and cybercrime are not the same thing. Cybersecurity is about protecting systems, networks, and data, governance, the standards, resilience, and incident response. While cybercrime, Madam Speaker, is about criminal acts conducted in or through digital spaces, the laws, the investigations, and the prosecutions that address them. Both are important. Both are in this portfolio. However, they are separate, and I'm going to address them separately. Madam Speaker, I'm proud to report to this Honorable House that the Cybercrimes Amendment Act 2026 was passed in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. This is a landmark achievement for Jamaica's digital governance, and it represents the culmination of extensive legislative work, stakeholder consultation, and cross-party parliamentary process. Madam Speaker, the original Cybercrimes Act of 2015 was landmark legislation for its time. But in the 11 years since its enactment, the digital environment has shifted fundamentally. Artificial intelligence has created new vectors for fraud and manipulation. Deepfakes and AI-generated imagery have enabled forms of harm that the 2015 law could not have anticipated. Non-consensual intimate image sharing has become a serious and growing crime affecting real Jamaicans, overwhelmingly our women and our girls. And our international obligations under the United Nations Convention on Cybercrime, to which we are a signatory, created both the framework and the mandate for modernization. The Cybercrimes Amendment Act 2026 answers all these realities. It modernizes definitions, introduces new offenses, strengthens investigative powers, and fully aligns Jamaica's legislative framework with our international commitments. Parliament has acted, the law has been updated, and the digital environment our citizens navigate every day is more secure because of it. But, Madam Speaker, that legislative milestone does not stand alone. It is one piece of a comprehensive national effort to secure Jamaica in cyberspace. So let me now lay out the full picture of where we stand, where we are headed, and the governance architecture that will bring it all together. Madam Speaker, Jamaica is under active, escalating cyber attack. In 2025 alone, there were more than 49 million cyber attack attempts in Jamaica, up from 12 million in 2022. I repeat, in 2025 alone, there were more than 49 million cyber attack attempts in Jamaica, up from 12 million in 2022. Critical government systems and institutions have been targeted and breached. A data breach on a major government digital platform exposed the personal and information of hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans. These are not warnings, these are results. In fact, a 2020 assessment of Jamaica's national cybersecurity maturity rated us at just 40% of the maximum score, against the regional leader, which is around 70%. And so the gap is real, it is structural, and it must be closed. We have, however, been building the architecture to close it. The Jamaica Cybersecurity Standards Framework, aligned to the internationally recognized NIST framework, is now complete. The National Cyber Incident Response Plan is tested and ready. Some US $10 million through the Strengthening Cybersecurity in Jamaica project backed by the IDB and USAID is approved and ready to deploy through 2029. The challenge has not been strategic, Madam Speaker. It has been the governance mechanism to drive execution. And that is precisely what I'm about to address. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's National Cybersecurity Strategy 2021 to 2025 expires this year. It is the second iteration of a national strategy that began in 2015 and it has served Jamaica well. It gives us 5 strategic goals. protect, deter, build, partner, govern, that have guided our national cybersecurity architecture through a period of significant growth and equally significant threat. It gave us the frameworks, the standards, and the incident playbook. The progress it enabled is real. But, Madam Speaker, strategy must evolve. The threat landscape of 2025 is not the landscape of 2021. Artificial intelligence is now being weaponized by attackers. Supply chain compromise has become the primary concern of large organizations globally. Critical information infrastructure protection has moved from aspiration to operational necessity. And, Madam Speaker, Hurricane Melissa reminded us that cybersecurity and physical resilience are not separate disciplines, they are one. Jamaica, Madam Speaker, is committed to entering its third national cybersecurity strategy cycle, one built on stronger foundations, clear governance, and a permanent national cybersecurity directorate at the helm. Madam Speaker, the governance mechanism that will drive that process, that will bring every element of Jamaica's cybersecurity architecture into a single coordinated national effort is what I'm about to announce. Madam Speaker, each iteration of our strategy has built on the last. The 2025 strategy gave us Jamaica CERT. The 2021 strategy gave us the NCSF, the NCIRP, and the governance blueprint. The 2026 strategy, Madam Speaker, will give us the institutional permanence, the legislative teeth, and the operational scale that the previous two strategies pointed towards. Jamaica, Madam Speaker, will not simply refresh a document. Jamaica will build the next generation of its national cybersecurity posture. Madam Speaker, I just want to pause here before I go any further, to acknowledge the human work of Lieutenant Colonel Godfrey Sterling and his team in the CERT division. What they have accomplished to date with the limited resources they have is nothing short of Herculean. Madam Speaker, a new national cybersecurity law is being developed, and the groundwork is already laid. In July 2024, a comprehensive legislative drafting instructions matrix for Jamaica Cybersecurity Act was completed. One of 6 documents produced to strengthen Jamaica's national cybersecurity ecosystem in preparation for the IDB and the USAID investment program. That matrix provides a near complete blueprint for what this law will contain and how it should be structured. The legislative pathway is clearly defined and the timeline is set. A cybersecurity policy and legislative gap assessment will be completed within the first 4 months of a new national governance framework. Drafted instructions will be finalized by month 6. Cabinet submissions on the full legislative package are targeted for months 9 to 12. The question is, what will this law do? It will establish the National Cybersecurity Directorate in statute, giving Jamaica's permanent cybersecurity authority a legal foundation that no future change in administration can quietly dismantle. It will create a formal framework for designating and protecting critical information infrastructure. The system whose failure would cause serious harm to national life, such as in sectors as energy, banking, telecommunication, health, and government. It will mandate minimum cybersecurity standards across regulated sectors with the authority to enforce compliance. It will, Madam Speaker, create clear obligations for incident reporting, responsible disclosure of vulnerabilities, and the regulation of cybersecurity service providers operating in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Singapore has its Cybersecurity Act. Malaysia passed its cybersecurity bill in 2024. The European Union has its Network and Information Security Directive. Jamaica's Cybersecurity Act is the legislation that places us in that company and establishes us as the Caribbean's legislative standard bearer in this domain. Madam Speaker, I've just laid before this House Jamaica's cybersecurity posture, our strategic direction, and our legislative pipeline. a strategy, a standards framework, an incident response plan, legislation in development, and expiring national strategy being renewed, US $10 million in external investment ready to deploy. Each of these is a powerful instrument, Madam Speaker. But instrument without a conductor produces noise, not music. What Jamaica has needed and what Jamaica now has is the governance mechanism that takes every one of these elements and converts them into a single, coordinated, accountable national effort. And that, Madam Speaker, is what the National Cybersecurity Coordination Assurance Council is designed to produce. So today, Madam Speaker, I am announcing that I intend to take to Cabinet a proposal that will establish the National Cybersecurity Coordination Assurance Council as the central coordination and delivery authority for Jamaica's national security posture. The Council, Madam Speaker, is a 24-month mandate housed within the Office of the Prime Minister, reporting directly through me to the Prime Minister. It is not a new bureaucracy. It is the engine of coherence. Its specific mandate is to take every cybersecurity asset Jamaica already possesses, every standard, every plan, every unit, every dollar of investment, and convert them into a coordinated, accountable, measurable national capability. So in concrete terms, Madam Speaker, the Council will do the following. Within 90 days of its activation, stand up a national cyber incident reporting front door, a single point of contact available around the clock to every Jamaican, every business, and every government entity. Within 6 months of its activation, complete the legislative gap assessment and drafted instructions for a new Cybersecurity Act. Within 12 months of its activation, bring the full legislative package for the permanent council, the permanent directorate before Cabinet, and formally recommend to the Prime Minister the process and timeline for developing the National Cybersecurity Strategy 2026 to 2030. Across the full 24 months post its activation, coordinate deployment of the US 10 million IDB and USAID investment, operationalize the critical information infrastructure protection framework, and ensure that every government agency meets the baseline requirement of the Jamaica Cybersecurity Standards Framework. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the most consequential technology development of our time: artificial intelligence, and what Jamaica is doing to govern it responsibly and deploy it inclusively. Madam Speaker, artificial intelligence is not a future technology. It is the present reality. It is being used, Madam Speaker, right now to transform healthcare, agriculture, financial services, education, and public administration in countries that are moving with deliberation and speed. The countries, Madam Speaker, that govern AI well will harvest its benefits. The countries that do not will bear its consequences, and we cannot allow ourselves to fall into that space, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Jamaica's regional standing on AI governance deserves to be restated. 3 members of our national task force sits on the newly established Caribbean AI Task Force convened by the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. Our chairman, Christopher Record, serves as its deputy chairman. Jamaica, Madam Speaker, is not following the Caribbean on this. Jamaica is helping to set the direction. That is a source of national pride, and it's a responsibility we intend to honor. Madam Speaker, I want to make explicit the connection between AI governance and the data protection framework we discussed earlier. The Data Protection Act of 2020 was not designed with artificial intelligence in mind. Algorithmic processing of personal data, automated decision-making, AI-driven profiling, none of these realities were contemplated when the act was first drafted. As Jamaica moves, Madam Speaker, to deploy AI in public services, healthcare, agriculture, and financial inclusion, this gap becomes a risk to citizens' rights. The AI legislative framework that the National AI Task Force is now developing will specifically address AI readiness in our data protection regime, ensuring, Madam Speaker, that the principles of transparency, accountability, and consent that underpin the DPA are extended into the era of intelligence systems. Data protection, Madam Speaker, and AI governance are not separate conversations. They are the same conversations at different speed. Madam Speaker, Jamaica does not approach AI policy from a standing start. The National AI Task Force produced a comprehensive set of national AI policy recommendations in March of last year and completed a UNESCO AI readiness assessment the same year, giving us, Madam Speaker, an internationally benchmarked, evidence-based picture of exactly where we stand. The reconstituted task force has a clear mandate, a national AI draft policy within 6 to 9 months, and that is by November of this year, and it will cover 8 domains, from innovation and economic growth through the ethics, legal frameworks, and government-industry collaboration developed through genuine consultation. We will meet that target, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I need to speak to a matter that is unfolding right now, not in the future, but today across the government of Jamaica. I have set out in the previous section the full legislative agenda that will give AI governance its full legal force in Jamaica. The AI policy, the AI Act, the structured review mechanism, and the question of a national AI regulatory authority. What I want to focus here, Madam Speaker, is a dimension of the AI agenda that no policy document and no law can fully capture: the human dimension. Government entities have already begun using AI tools in the execution of their functions, not in a coordinated way, not under a formal policy, not with the governance, risk management, or accountability guardrails that responsible AI use requires, simply because the tools are available, increasingly affordable and visibly capable, and public servants, like everyone else, are reaching for them. Madam Speaker, I want to be clear. The instinct to innovate is not the problem. The problem, Madam Speaker, is that AI use is outpacing understanding. It is outpacing oversight. It is outpacing accountability. And in the context of government, where public servants handle sensitive personal data, confidential state information, and records that belong to the Jamaican people, that gap is a risk we cannot afford to ignore. And so, Madam Speaker, I had to instruct our AI task force to treat with urgency and provide a report on AI literacy for the public sector. And I want to say that they did not disappoint. Within 2 weeks, they have formulated an AI literacy program and have given us recommendations. Madam Speaker, I just want to state here that this is not a technical training course. It is a policy-grounded program that equips every public officer to understand what AI is, how it is being used, what the risks are, and where the boundaries must lie, covering data governance, data sovereignty, privacy obligations under the Data Protection Act, cybersecurity risks, ethics, and the non-negotiable principle that human oversight cannot be delegated to a machine. The Management Institute for National Development, MIND, is being considered as the principal training and delivery entity within the government. And of course, the Jamaica ICT Authority will be a central partner to this initiative. Madam Speaker, we cannot build an AI-ready Jamaica from the outside in. It must start with the public service. It must start with government. And so the government of Jamaica will move immediately to advance a structured AI literacy program across the public service, and the government must and will lead this effort itself. Madam Speaker, no AI agenda means anything if it reaches only corporate offices and university campuses. It must reach, Madam Speaker, St. Catherine South Central, rural St. Mary, Westmoreland, the young mother who has the talent but not the tools, the unattached youth with capacity, potential, and no clear pathway, the low-skilled worker who is concerned about how AI will impact their ability to even get a job. That is why today, Madam Speaker, I am announcing GAINS, Jamaica's growing AI innovation and national skills program. Madam Speaker, GAINS is not a training program in the conventional sense. It's a national workforce transformation initiative with a structured employment pipeline connecting certified graduates directly to Jamaica's private sector from day one. Oh, here's how it will work, Madam Speaker. To enhance Universal Service Fund community access points, digital infrastructure we already own in communities across Jamaica, GAINS will deliver a 6-week AI mastery curriculum structured around Jamaica's national priority sectors in every one of our 63 constituencies.
Minister, your time for speaking has expired. Please wrap up.
Well, Madam Speaker, in wrapping up, I will simply state, Madam Speaker, that the initiative known as GAINS, Madam Speaker, will partner with the SDC, the NSTA to provide certification, and for qualified at-risk youth, a participation stipend of $50,000 per month will be available, because evidence shows that removing financial barriers is the most effective way to ensure our most vulnerable young people complete the program and reach employment. Madam Speaker, it is intended that a minimum of 1,260 NSTA certified graduates per national cohort will benefit from this initiative. Madam Speaker, we have done so much, but I want to use the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to applaud the effort of Neptune Communications and Ispasat Communication, who assisted us with deploying satellites to assist with communication for the Jamaica Fire Brigade, JSF schools, and health facilities in communities affected by Hurricane Melissa in recent time. And Madam Speaker, I'm wrapping up. Madam Speaker, JSF, Madam Speaker, is one such entity of government that has transformed itself, Madam Speaker, from being an infrastructure development support initiative. Madam Speaker, I beg you some protection so I can wrap up. Madam Speaker, I want us to appreciate the work of JSF, Madam Speaker. JSF has contributed significantly to the rollout of a number of social programs, and they will be partnering with us in the GAINS program. GAINS will be monitored or be facilitated through the work of JSF. Madam Speaker, I also want to mention Chase. The Chase Fund has contributed or spent some $1.232 billion for the last financial year, assisting in providing support to public hospitals, assisting patients with treatments. But Madam Speaker, I want to close my presentation with a declaration. It's a very large era. Jamaica, Madam Speaker, has always done more with less. We have competed at the highest levels in athletics, in music, in diplomacy, in business. With a fraction of the resources available to other nations, we outperform. That is not luck, Madam Speaker. That is the product of a people with extraordinary intelligence, extraordinary resilience, and an extraordinary will. What we have not done fully, consistently, systematically is invest in the infrastructure that converts that intelligence into sustained national prosperity. The infrastructure of knowledge, innovation, and digital resilience. This is what this portfolio is about, Madam Speaker. And this is the parliamentary cycle in which we move deliberately urgently and with conviction from policy to construction. Madam Speaker, I stand here today, Madam Speaker.
Minister Wheatley.
I'm wrapping up. Madam Speaker, I stand here today in a new chapter with a broader mandate, making the same commitment. And to the Jamaican people watching and listening, we are not in the business of grand declarations. We are in the business of results. The world is not waiting for Jamaica, Madam Speaker, but Jamaica, this portfolio, this moment is not waiting either. Grow through research, innovation, and technology. That is the commitment of this portfolio, Madam Speaker. That is the promise of this government. That is the grit of this Jamaica. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Orderly.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects, and Member of Parliament for St. Catherine South Central, Dr. Wheatley, for a very in-depth and important presentation. We will now have the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Eastern, Dr. Dayton Campbell, for his presentation.
Madam Speaker, it is with humility, gratitude, and a deep sense of responsibility that I rise to make my contribution to this sectoral debate on agriculture and fisheries. I give thanks to Almighty God for his guidance and strength. Public service is a sacred trust that demands wisdom, integrity, courage, and humility. As members of this honorable house, we are entrusted with the hopes, struggles, and aspirations of the Jamaican people, and we must remain faithful stewards of that responsibility. I express sincere gratitude to my family for their unwavering love, sacrifice, and support. Their encouragement has been a constant source of strength throughout the demands of public life. I also thank the leader of the opposition, the member from South St. Andrew, for his leadership and the confidence that he has placed in me. And I want to especially commend him for his love and commitment to the Jamaican people. To my team members, chief among them are my councillors, the mayor, the councillor for Betheltown, Danry Delancey, the councillor for the Darliston Division, Jerome Bacchus, the councillor for the Leamington Division, Amarcard Brown, and the councillor for the White House Division, Michael Jackson. I also want to recognize my deputy or junior spokesperson, Reverend Dr. Paul Blake, who is also here with us. To the volunteers, researchers, and constituency workers whose dedication helped connect our work to the realities faced by our people every day, I say thank you. Most importantly, Madam Speaker, I thank the people of Eastern Westmoreland for the trust they have placed in me. I carry their voices into this chamber. The farmer worried about drought, the fisherman praying for calm seas, the mother struggling with rising food costs, the young person seeking opportunity, and the elderly citizen hoping not to be forgotten. That is why the theme of my contribution is a harvest the people can eat. Success in agriculture and fisheries must not be measured by speeches, announcements, or consultations. It must be measured by results. It must reflect in farmers who have reliable access to water, markets, and protection from disasters, fishers who have the equipment and support they need, affordable food for consumers, thriving rural communities, meaningful opportunities for young people, and a Jamaica that is less dependent on imported food. When Jamaicans still struggle to afford basic food, when farmers continue to face repeated disaster without timely recovery support, when fishers wait too long for assistance, and when young people remain locked out of agriculture because they cannot access land, financing, training, or markets, we must be honest with ourselves. The system is not delivering as it should. I say this not only as a member of parliament, but as a farmer myself. You're not keeping up if you don't know that I'm a farmer. You're not keeping up, you know. You're not keeping up. You're not keeping up. Madam Speaker, I know. I know the anxiety of waiting on rainfall. I know the disappointment of seeing crops fail after months of labor. In communities like those across Eastern Westmoreland, agriculture is more than abstract policy issues. It is survival, dignity, opportunity, and hope. This debate, therefore, is not merely about statistics or policy documents. It is about whether the people of Jamaica, especially those in rural communities, feel protected, respected, and empowered by the policies of their government. Madam Speaker, I wish to place on the record a biblical principle directly to the issues before us today. Galatians 6:7 reminds us, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Whilst the Apostle Paul was speaking about moral responsibility, he used language every farmer understands. The principle is simple. There is a relationship between what is planted and what is harvested, between choices and consequences, between policy and outcomes. That principle applies equally to public policy. A country that sows weak planning cannot expect strong agricultural sector. A country that underinvests in irrigation, farm roads, agricultural resilience, fisheries infrastructure, and youth participation cannot expect to reap food security and rural prosperity. The scripture also warns us, be not deceived. In policy terms, we must not confuse activity with achievement, announcements with results, or public relations with progress. Consultations, launches, and press releases have their place, but they cannot substitute for practical support that reaches farmers, fishers, and consumers. Therefore, when I speak of a harvest the people can eat, I speak not only of crops and fish, but of the harvest of governance itself. Ultimately, leadership is judged not by what it announced, but by what the people are able to reap from our stewardship. Madam Speaker, agriculture and fisheries are not secondary sectors to be discussed only in times of crisis. They are fundamental to Jamaica's survival, stability, and economic independence. I acknowledge that some work has been done and some progress has been made. I acknowledge also the dedication of farmers, fishers, extension officers, technical staff, and rural communities. However, the real question is whether government policy has produced sufficient improvement in the lives of the people who depend on those sectors. Far too many Jamaicans answer that as no. Madam Speaker, if we wish to assess the true state of agriculture, we must look beyond announcement and examine the results. The figures are sobering. In 2025, Jamaica's food import bill rose to approximately US 1.46 billion. I don't know if the member speaking before has some updated information, because he said the food import bill is at 2 billion. That's US dollars. When the government came to office in 2016, that food import bill was at 834 million US dollars. Approximately 50% of what it is now. At the same time, agricultural exports declined from approximately US 288 million in 2024 to US 278 million in 2025. As a result, Jamaica now imports roughly $5 worth of food for every dollar earned from agricultural exports. These figures should concern every policymaker. Jamaica is blessed with fertile land, a strong agricultural tradition, and thousands of hardworking farmers. Yet we remain heavily dependent on imported food. Madam Speaker, praise for agriculture carries little weight if the food import bill continues to rise while agricultural export continues to decline. Ultimately, the measure of success is not what is announced, but what is achieved for the Jamaican people. Jamaica remains heavily dependent on imported food and agricultural inputs. As a result, we are exposed to global price increases, supply chain disruption, exchange rate pressure, and international events beyond our control, as the war in Iran, between Iran and Israel, is now affecting us. Madam Speaker, the government should identify those products that can be produced or substituted locally and develop targeted strategies to expand domestic production. This includes strengthening local feed production, supporting crops such as cassava, sweet potato, breadfruit, onions, Irish potato, sorghum, and providing incentives for farmers producing priority commodities. In the debate that we had on the Jamaica Dairy Board, I spoke about the opportunity that is there for milk and beef trimmings. But Irish potato, Madam Speaker, Jamaica imports between 19.5 million and 21 million tons of French fries annually, at a cost to the country of more than US $30 million each year. These figures, drawn from the last 5 years, highlight a significant opportunity for import substitution, value-added production, and rural economic growth. When the National Development Plan speaks of agribusinesses and value chain development, farmers and the wider agricultural sector expect to see practical strategies that can transform these imports into local production. Specifically, the country should be pursuing a plan to replace those imported French fries with the domestic production of approximately 34 to 36 million kilograms of Irish potatoes, based on a conversion ratio of 1.75 kilograms of Irish potatoes for every kilogram of French fries produced. Madam Speaker, the opportunities arising from such an initiative would extend across several agricultural regions of Jamaica. We have already demonstrated the capacity to successfully cultivate Irish potato in Manchester, Trelawney, St. Elizabeth, St. James, and the Guysill Belt, spanning St. Catherine, St. Mary, and St. Anne. Many farming communities, including those in my own constituency, stand ready to participate and benefit from such an expansion. Based on the current yield that we get in Jamaica of approximately 15 metric tons per hectare, if we were to take on that full demand, we would put 2,000 hectares of Irish potato under production. Madam Speaker, this is precisely the type of strategic thinking, detailed planning, and measurable economic opportunity that our farmers expect when government speaks about national development. Agribusiness and value chain development cannot remain abstract concepts in policy documents. They must be translated into clear production targets. Madam Speaker, I welcome the National Agricultural Development Plan and the efforts to establish a long-term vision for the sector. Jamaica needs a serious agricultural strategy, and on that principle, there should be broad agreement in this House. However, our greatest challenge is not a lack of diagnosis. We already know the problems. We know that irrigation remains inadequate, access to financing and technology is limited, storage capacity is insufficient, production planning is inconsistent, export system can be burdensome, and too many farmers and fishers remain disconnected from the benefits of national policy. The danger is that the National Agricultural Development Plan becomes another document that accurately identifies problems but fails to meaningfully deliver change. Plans by themselves do not transform a country. Execution does. Execution requires clear priorities, measurable targets, transparent budget, defined responsibilities, regular reporting, and the political will to follow through. That is why I call for a public implementation framework to be attached to the plan, one that identifies priority project, timelines, funding sources, implementing agencies, and measurable outcomes. The Jamaican people deserve to know not only what is proposed, but how success will be measured and when results can be expected. Madam Speaker, Hurricane Melissa exposed serious weaknesses in the way we protect and support the people who feed this country. I witnessed the devastation firsthand in eastern Westmoreland. I met farmers who saw months of labor destroyed overnight. I spoke to fishers who lost boats, engine, traps, and equipment. I saw families wondering how they would recover and whether they could afford to start again. Behind every damaged farm is a family. Behind every destroyed boat is a livelihood. And behind every statistic is a human story. The damage revealed not only the impact of a hurricane, but the vulnerability of the systems on which farmers and fishers depend. No government can prevent a hurricane. The true test of leadership, however, is whether recovery systems are strong enough to respond quickly and help people rebuild with dignity. On that test, many farmers and fishers believe the system fell short. The issue is not the storm itself. Jamaicans understand that hurricanes are part of our reality. The issue is what happened after the storm passed. Too many people waited too long for assistance, too many remained uncertain about available support, and too many felt forgotten once public attention moved on. Recovery cannot depend on hope. It requires funding, clear timelines, transparent criteria, and public accountability. I therefore call on the government to table a comprehensive recovery report to Parliament detailing the assistance delivered, beneficiaries reached, funds allocated and disbursed, outstanding needs, and measures being implemented to strengthen resilience against future disaster. Most importantly, disaster recovery must be built around the realities of production. Farmers cannot wait indefinitely to replant crops. Livestock require daily feed, and fishers must return to sea quickly to support their families. Madam Speaker, the first recommendation I place before the House in this is the establishment of a permanent agriculture and fisheries disaster recovery fund. Such a fund should not be created after every hurricane, flood, or drought. It should not depend on emergency appeals or delayed budget allocations after livelihoods have been destroyed. It should be a standing national fund, financed annually and ready to be activated immediately when disaster strikes. Jamaica is vulnerable to hurricanes, floods, droughts, and other climate-related events. These risks are predictable. Our response system should therefore be proactive, not reactive. A permanent fund would allow government to move from crisis management to preparedness. It would provide farmers and fishers with confidence that support will be available through a clear, transparent mechanism whenever disaster causes significant losses. The fund should serve 5 core purposes: providing emergency assistance to affected producers, replacing critical productive assets, supporting temporary livelihoods where incomes have been disrupted, accelerating replanting and restocking, and helping producers rebuild in ways that are more resilient to future disasters. Importantly, recovery must be linked to production. The objective is not simply to compensate losses, but to help farmers return to their fields and fishers return to the sea as quickly as possible. Madam Speaker, every disaster teaches the same lesson. Delayed recovery increases hardship, weakens food security, and slows economic growth. A permanent recovery fund would help ensure that assistance is timely, predictable, and focused on restoring livelihoods. If we know the disaster will come, then preparedness is not an option, it is a responsibility. Madam Speaker, for the fund to succeed, it must be transparent, efficient, and trusted by the people it is designed to serve. It cannot become another program defined by delay, uncertainty, or discretion. It must operate according to clear rules, clear timelines, and clear accountability. Farmers and fishers should know who qualifies, what losses are covered, what support is available, and how assistance can be accessed. Once a disaster is declared and the fund is activated, application should be processed through a simple and accessible system supported by RADA, Fisheries Authority, and parish-level recovery teams. Most importantly, recovery must be timely. Damage assessment should begin immediately. Emergency assistance should reach affected producers within weeks, and regular public reports should provide transparency on beneficiaries, funding, and progress. The fund should also be supported by parish-level agricultural and fisheries recovery teams established before disaster occurs. Their role would be to assess damage, verify losses, coordinate assistance, and ensure that support reaches those most in need quickly and fairly. Madam Speaker, preparedness is not simply about forecasting storms. It is about having systems in place to protect livelihoods, restore production, and help people recover with dignity when disaster strikes. The obvious question is how such a fund would be financed. The answer is that it should not depend on a single source of funding. A permanent agriculture and fishery disaster recovery fund should be supported through a blended model that combines annual government allocations, climate finance, insurance mechanism, development partner support, and private sector partnership. Madam Speaker, a responsible nation does not wait until livelihoods are destroyed before searching for funding. It prepares in advance. Equally important, Madam Speaker, is accountability. The fund should be independently audited, report annually to Parliament, and publish recovery reports after major disasters, detailing how funds were allocated, who benefited, and what outcomes were achieved. The Jamaican people should not have to guess how disaster funds are being spent. Transparency must be built into the system from the beginning. I propose the establishment of an oversight body as well, comprising of representatives of government, opposition, farmers and fishers organizations, and other relevant stakeholders to strengthen public confidence and ensure fair administration. Madam Speaker, the issue before us is not whether resources can be found. The issue is whether we are prepared to build permanent systems that ensure those resources reach the people who need them the most when they need them the most. This is not simply an agricultural priority. It is a national responsibility and one that should unite us across party lines. Madam Speaker, disaster recovery is essential, but recovery alone cannot be our strategy. We must place equal emphasis on reducing vulnerability before disaster strikes. Climate change is no longer a future concern. It is a present reality. Farmers are facing longer droughts, more intense hurricanes, irregular rainfall, flooding, heat stress, and increased pest pressures. Fishers are confronting changing marine conditions and increasingly dangerous seas. The question is whether we are doing enough to help them adapt. Serious resilience program must include expanded irrigation, water harvesting system, protected agriculture, drought-resistant crops, improved drainage, hurricane-resistant infrastructure, coastal protection, and modern early warning systems. Resilience cannot remain a word that appears only in reports and speeches. It must be reflected in the investment we make and the systems we build. Madam Speaker, one of the fastest and most practical ways to strengthen food security is to reduce post-harvest loss. Too much of what our farmers produce never reaches to the consumers. Valuable produce is lost because of inadequate storage, limited cold chain infrastructure, insufficient processing capacity, and weaknesses in moving goods efficiently from farm to market. At a time when farmers are working hard to increase production, consumers are facing high food prices. Such losses are simply unacceptable. The government should therefore prioritize parish-level aggregation and distribution centers where produce can be sorted, graded, stored, processed, and connected to reliable markets. These facilities should be linked to schools, hospitals, hotels, supermarkets, exporters, and agro-processors to strengthen the journey from farm to table. We must also improve access to market intelligence. Farmers need timely information on demand, prices, and market opportunities so that production decisions can be guided by data rather than guesswork. Madam Speaker, reducing post-harvest loss is about more than preventing waste. It is about increasing farmers' incomes, improving food affordability, strengthening supply chains, and making better use of what Jamaica already produces. In relation to youth in agriculture, Madam Speaker, if Jamaica is serious about the future of agriculture, then we must be equally serious about investing in young people who will shape that future. The minister spoke about youth engagement and developing the next generation of agricultural leaders, an objective that this deserves broad support. However, the cancellation of the National 4-H Achievement Day 2026 has raised legitimate concerns among students, parents, teachers, and stakeholders across the sector. National Achievement Day is more than an event. It is a platform that recognizes excellence, encourages innovation, builds confidence, and exposes young people to opportunities in agriculture, agribusiness, science, and entrepreneurship. For many students, particularly those in rural communities, it is their opportunity to showcase their talent on a national stage. Against that background, the cancellation is disappointing and warrants a clear explanation. At a time when we are encouraging young people to enter agriculture, opportunities for recognition and participation should be expanding and not shrinking. I therefore call on the government to provide a full explanation for the cancellation, commit to restoring National Achievement Day in 2027, and consider hosting an alternative National Youth Agricultural Showcase this year so that students who have worked hard are not deprived of an opportunity to display their achievements. The 4-H movement also needs to be properly funded. Madam Speaker, Jamaica needs a clear and structured pathway for young people to enter and succeed in agriculture. That pathway should begin in our schools, extend through training, land access, financing, business development, and marketing opportunities. Madam Speaker, I also wish to recognize the indispensable contribution of women to the agricultural sector. Women are farmers, agro-processors, entrepreneurs, vendors, and community leaders. They play a critical role in food production, value-added processing, household food security, and rural development. Yet many continue to face barriers in accessing land, financing, equipment, irrigation, transportation, and farmer markets. If we are serious about agricultural development, then we must be equally serious about removing those barriers. I therefore support targeted programs that expand access to financing, training, processing, packaging, branding, and market opportunities for women-led agricultural enterprise and cooperatives. Particular attention should be given to rural women involved in value-added production, where agriculture creates not only income, but employment and economic activity within communities. Madam Speaker, investing in women is not simply a social objective. It is a sound economic strategy. When women in agriculture succeed, families are strengthened, communities become more resilient, and the nation moves closer to achieving food security and inclusive growth. If Jamaica is serious about developing its blue economy, then we must invest in the foundations of a modern fisheries industry. Fisheries need reliable landing sites, cold storage facilities, ice-making plants, market access, timely weather information, and stronger cooperative structure that improves efficiency and strengthens their position within the ecosystem. Madam Speaker, on the issue of predial larceny, no serious agricultural policy can ignore predial larceny. Farmers cannot be expected to invest, expand production, or encourage the next generation to enter agriculture if criminals can steal livestock and crops with little fear of consequences. Predial larceny is more than theft. It is an attack on rural livelihoods, food security, and economic growth. It undermines confidence, discourages investment, and weakens the agricultural sector. The government must strengthen its response through better coordination among law enforcement, RADA, farmers' organizations, local communities. Improve farm registration, stronger livestock identification system. And if you speak to most cattle farmers currently, Madam Speaker, they will tell you that they can't get any tags for their animals. So in essence, what we are doing is turning the hard-working farmers of the country into criminals when they are caught with these animals that they cannot properly identify. We need continued investment in farm roads. And Madam Speaker, on the issue of farm roads, the minister often stands up to talk about how many farm roads have been done. And oftentimes, it is about 300 or 400 meters of farm road when the road leading to the farm is 5 kilometers. And they've only repaired a section of 300 or 400 meters to say that we do 200 roads. That is not efficient, Madam Speaker, and that is not transformative. Madam Speaker, Jamaica must do more to capture the full value of what our farmers produce. Too often, the greatest economic value is created after harvest through processing, packaging, and branding, and marketing. Agro-processing, therefore, represents one of the clearest opportunities to increase incomes, reduce post-harvest losses, create jobs, and expand exports. Whether it is fruits being transformed into juices, cassava processed into flour, or spices converted into value-added products, every stage of processing allows Jamaica to retain more wealth within the local economy. Madam Speaker, one of the greatest tests of government is whether promises are translated into measurable results. Too often, programs are announced and resources are allocated without sufficient public reporting on outcomes and impact. The Jamaican people deserve to know not only what was promised, but what was delivered. I therefore propose that the ministry publish an annual agriculture and fisheries sector scorecard reporting on key indicators such as farmers and fishers support, youth and women participation, agricultural expansion, farm road improvement, disaster recovery assistance, fisheries development, post-harvest loss reduction, and efforts to strengthen food security. Prime Minister, transparency is not a burden. It is a pillar of good governance. Clear reporting strengthens accountability, improves decision-making, and builds public confidence. If we are serious about transforming agriculture and fisheries, then performance must be measured not by announcements made, but by the results delivered. Madam Speaker, the opposition offers a practical agenda focused on implementation, accountability, and results. Our priorities are clear: a permanent agriculture and fisheries disaster recovery fund, a national food import reduction plan, stronger support for youth through Jamaica 4-H Club, and a Youth in Agriculture program, a modernized and resilient fisheries sector, stronger response to predial larceny, greater investment in farm roads, irrigation, storage, and agro-processing, expanded opportunity for women in agriculture, increased access to financing, insurance, and risk management tools, and greater transparency through annual sector scorecard and public reporting. Madam Speaker, Jamaica just does not need more promises without delivery or plans without implementation. What our farmers and fishers need are policies that increase production, strengthen food security, expand opportunity, and improve livelihoods. This is the agenda we are proposing. That is the standard we should demand, and that is the future our agriculture and fisheries sector deserves. Madam Speaker, as the Member of Parliament for Eastern Westmoreland, I have witnessed the resilience, determination, and hard work of our farmers, fishers, and rural communities. They're not asking for favors. They're asking for opportunity. They're asking for partnership. They're asking for leadership that matches words with action. The opposition stands ready to support every measure that genuinely advances those goals, but we will continue to demand accountability, transparency, and results, because the Jamaican people deserve nothing less. And so, I return to the central theme of this debate. The true measure of success is not what is announced, but what is achieved. It is measured in the farmer who can earn a fair return from the land. It is measured in the fisher who can return safely to sea. It is measured in the young person who sees a future in agriculture. It is measured in families who can afford the food they need, and in rural communities that can thrive with dignity and hope. That is the harvest Jamaica needs. That is the harvest our people deserve. And that is the harvest that we must all work together to achieve. Thank you very much. Sorry, I Good try.
House Leader, just go straight ahead. The House Leader, turn on his mic.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We want to thank the member from Westmoreland Eastern, a new convert to the farming sector, for his presentation. And we will now invite the member from Southeastern St. Mary, Mr. Christopher Brown, for his presentation.
Madam Speaker, permission to speak from a seat other than my own.
Permission granted. Mr.
Thank you.
Speaker will be taking over as well.
Yes. Madam Speaker, I rise today to make my contribution. I rise knowing that the confidence that has been reposed in me by the people of Southeastern St. Mary is strong. It is firmly rooted and grounded in a shared vision of wanting better for our communities, better for our people, and better for our country. I therefore remain grateful to the people for this opportunity to serve. I want to acknowledge from the outset the members of my constituency executive, Mr. Speaker, and advisory team, long-standing Councillor Levan Freeman, who are seated in the gallery. I thank you for your loyalty, your support, your service, and your hard work as we continue to work towards building better for Southeastern St. Mary. Madam Speaker, I want to also acknowledge the students and teachers of St. Mary Technical High, Marymount High, and Anota Bay High, the three main high schools in Southeast St. Mary. I thank them for being here today. Let me also express sincere thanks to the leader for the confidence he has reposed in me in appointing me to serve as a member of his shadow cabinet. I want to also, Mr. Speaker, take the opportunity to thank members on both sides of this honorable House for their support, their guidance, and their quiet words of encouragement to me as a first-term member of Parliament. And Madam Speaker, I want to thank my family. My wife, Sandra, my son, William, who is in the gallery, my mother, who has been ailing for some time. Mommy, I know you are watching, and all will be well. Mr. Speaker, last week I listened to Minister Marks. Just now we heard from Minister Wheatley. I extend to both the respect they deserve, and I want to say clearly on the record that real things are happening. The Data Protection Act, the ICT Authority, the JDXP, the AI Task Force, JCERT's decade of work, credit must be given where credit is due. I wish to also put on record the government in its own mission statements, both at the level of government generally and within the respective ministries, have recognized that the world has entered a digital revolution. This digital revolution, if properly embraced and adopted with urgency, can deliver the efficiencies and growth that have eluded us for many decades. Mr. Speaker, we are already seeing the benefits of this transformation in many other countries and regions. The efficiencies it brings, the productivity gains it enables, and the opportunities it creates for new entrants into the business space, particularly small and emerging entrepreneurs. We also recognize that one of the key economic indicators of a country moving toward higher growth and higher income status is its capacity to innovate. Yes. Yes. Innovation is central to competitiveness in the modern global economy. Madam Speaker, this digital revolution, therefore, presents us with clear opportunities, Mr. Speaker. Opportunities for growth, for higher incomes, for better salaries, and for improved productivity across all sectors. It offers a pathway for greater inclusion of small and medium-sized enterprises into the formal business economy without prohibitive costs, thereby leveling the playing field and broadening participation in economic activity. In short, Mr. Speaker, what we are witnessing is a transformation that, if properly harnessed, can accelerate economic growth, expand economic livelihoods, and reshape opportunity for our people. Within all of this, what has struck me, and not just from last week, and not just today, but from the outset of this administration as it relates to the areas of science, technology, and matters relating to digital transformation, is a remarkable, unbroken consistency in how these portfolios have been managed and prioritized. There is, Mr. Speaker, a consistency to confuse announcement with accomplishment, yes, to celebrate speeches as action, yeah, and now in recent time to position assessment as transformation. We have been talking a lot, making loads of announcements. Yes. The minister, in his own words earlier, said that the sector has been sleeping. Yes. 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 What an admission. But the modern infrastructure, complete with the required funding and the required legislation, has been consistently missing. And so it is therefore understandable, Mr. Speaker, that the Jamaican people and key industry stakeholders and practitioners are now entitled to shift the question to not what is the vision, but what has been delivered. Yes. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me ground this in evidence, as I don't come here to just chat, or to be partisan, or to criticize. Jamaica does not have the time for that in this rapidly changing and unfolding digital revolution. You know, one of the clearest examples of the impact of efficiency, innovation, and the utilization of digital tools, and of tapping into the broader digital revolution, is reflected in how we are ranked and rated in relation to the ease of doing business. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, sorry. In the 2015-2016 period, Jamaica was ranked 60s, in the 60s globally, out of approximately 190 economies in the World Bank's Doing Business assessment. However, in the last available report published by the World Bank, the final report before the series was discontinued, just before COVID, Jamaica was ranked 71st. We are going in the wrong direction. The World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, Global Innovation Index, ranks 139 countries on whether they are genuinely building the systems that drive modern economies. In 2020, Jamaica ranked 72nd. In 2025, 83rd. Taken closer, it represents 5 years of consecutive decline. Year after year after year after year of decline. Again, going in the wrong direction. From the same WIPO, knowledge and technology outputs ranks Jamaica 117th out of 139. Network readiness, 94th out of 127. These are not opposition statistics, Mr. Speaker. These are independent international scorecards. And the WIPO Director General was just here last week in Jamaica. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, one number I want every Jamaican listening to hold in their mind. In all of 2023, the entire year, Jamaican inventors filed 2 patents. 2. Ranked 121 out of 139 globally. Down 75% from the year before. No tech unicorn. There is not one Jamaican university in the international rankings. And this is not because we lack talent. Madam Speaker, our culture is extraordinary. Indeed, Jamaica is one of the great cultural powers of the world. Our music, our language, our rhythms, our creativity shape global culture every single day. Sports. But in the age of artificial intelligence and digital transformation, we must now ask, who owns Jamaican culture in the digital century? Artificial intelligence systems are now being trained on Jamaican music, Jamaican accents, Jamaican slang, and Jamaican creative expression, often without compensation or protection for the Jamaican people. Our culture is being mined as data while others monetize what Jamaica created. Mr. Speaker, innovation without sovereignty can become extraction. And so as we pursue digital transformation, Jamaica must also develop a serious national strategy around cultural intellectual property, around AI governance and digital rights, and become a leading voice through bodies such as WIPO in protecting cultural sovereignty in the age of artificial intelligence. So creativity without investment, as the WIPO General Secretary General told the Prime Minister, told Minister Wheatley, told Albin Hill last week, and creativity without research funding, without a system behind it, does not become patents. Yes. Let us look a little closer home. The Minister of Science, Energy and Technology Strategic Business Plan 2022 to 2026, which was published in February 2022, and this is the government's document, yes, states in strategic objective number 8, and I quote, facilitate an increase in investments in R&D, science, technology, and investment to 1% of GDP by March 2026. I heard the minister said earlier that it is 0.7% now. But if you check the WIPO records, there is no R&D expenditure figure for Jamaica at all. What? The Global Innovation Index ranks Jamaica 124th out of 133 on the scale as it relates to research and development. Sadly, Jamaica ranks 3rd in the entire world on the Human Flight and Brain Drain Index. More than 40% of every Jamaican who earns a university degree, yes, is living and working abroad. The nurse from UWI is in Canada. The engineer from UTAC is in London. The IT professional who could be building Jamaica's digital systems is in Florida. They did not leave because they didn't love Jamaica. Mr. Speaker, they left because Jamaica has not built the environment where their talent can be valued with dignity. No retention strategy. No tax incentive for the STEM professional who stays. No innovation district where returning diaspora can build something meaningful. Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about a young lady who is from a community called IB, IT Boreal, on the outskirts of Anata Bay in my constituency. She's in her late 20s. Yes. She has 2 children. And she lives with her mother while she stays in Kingston, yes, Sundays to Fridays each week. Yes. She has 3 other siblings. None works. 2 are still in school. Her mom also doesn't work. She is the breadwinner. She handles hundreds of calls a day, works hard, sends what she can home to help with the household, trying with everything she has to build something for herself and her family. She works in one of Jamaica's call centers. She represents thousands of Jamaicans, especially in the Montego Bay, St. Andrew, and Kingston area, whose livelihood depends on this sector. Yes. And right now, not in the future, but right now, Mr. Speaker, companies running these call centers globally are testing AI systems that do exactly what she does. Faster, cheaper. This government formed an AI task force in August 2023. Recommendations were published in 2025. UNESCO assessment completed in April of this year. And they are now, as of this sitting, beginning to draft a national AI policy. 3 years and Jamaica still has not enacted a plan. Shame. She needs a specific funded named program. Here is where you go. Here is what you learn. Here is who pays. Here is what job is waiting on the other side. Many other countries are doing this. Why can't Jamaica do this as well? There are thousands who are like this young lady, who want an end to the glossy symposiums, who want an end to the nice speeches, who want an end to the dilly-dallying. Madam Speaker, every Jamaican remembers Hurricane Melissa, October 2025. Cell towers down across entire parishes. Emergency service operating blind. Melissa was a natural disaster. We could not stop her. But what Melissa revealed clearly and painfully is what happens when Jamaica's infrastructure fails, when things go down, when services stop. And Madam Speaker, that collapse can happen because deliberately, the Caribbean, as the Minister acknowledged earlier on, is the fastest growing region in the world for cyber attacks, growing at 25% every year. We have had some major breaches, and I heard him said 49 million earlier, over the past 5 years, some public, some not disclosed. Both within the public and private sector, there have been breaches. The port of Kingston, if that goes down, nothing moves. There is no institutional or legislative framework that gives the government of Jamaica legal authority to compel the public sector, to compel customs, to compel a hospital, a port, or a utility to meet minimum security standards. We hear the minister announcing that that is to start now. We need that long time and we need it now. Yes. Only a cyber security act can do that. Yes. Madam Speaker, that gap was identified in 2015. The government told the OAS, in their own words, the work is progressing with an anticipated completion in 2027. Madam Speaker, 2027. On the overarching national security strategy, cybersecurity strategy, the government told the OAS the updated strategy had an implementation target of December 31st, 2025. That deadline has passed. Has it been formally adopted? Has it been completed? Singapore passed its Cybersecurity Act in 2018. Jamaica's own target is 2027, 9 years behind Singapore. Madam Speaker, when I speak and stand there today, I not only speak as a legislator. Yes. I have been in the senior leadership of private sector companies in this country, across the table from the government institutions in these areas. I work directly with needs and experienced the lengthy delays, lethargy, and missed deadlines. I worked with eGov Jamaica, and saw the downgrade, scaling down, underfunded activities which demoralized the professionals therein. I navigated jam decks with the Bank of Jamaica. So I've experienced the versions which are behind the conference and the glossy speeches. The pattern is real and always the same. Grand announcement, grand attention, and then timeline stretch, cost raise, confusion sets in, and eventually a new name, maybe a new minister, a new speech, a new acronym, and then it starts again. Jam decks from the private sector side, confusion, a complete legal tender framework, but no operational plumbing, no merchant adoption plan. Right now, no published roadmap. eGov became the ICT authority, a 6-year-old act, finally operationalized in April of 2025. Budget reduced, Minister, in the recent budget exercise. The JDXP now presented as a flagship achievement. The JDXP is the right tool, we acknowledge that. But where is the mandate requiring every ministry to use it by a specific date? The Data Protection Act, of which the minister spoke earlier, passed 2020, enforced 2023, a 3-year gap, and then widespread confusion in the private sector. Regulations still being written after enforcement had already begun. Scrappy execution. In fact, the act says that the law is to be reviewed every 5 years, and that timeline has already passed. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I say to both ministers sincerely, and I say to the Honorable Prime Minister in his absence, we want Jamaica to succeed, but let us get it right. Less announcements, less global workshops, more execution, more legislation, more funding, and more delivery. But what is it that Jamaica needs now? Jamaica needs these things. A cybersecurity act. The government says 2027, we need it now. Jamaica needs an updated national cybersecurity strategy. The government told the OAS December 31st, 2025. That deadline has passed. We need it now. Jamaica needs an enacted AI policy with a binding deadline and within it a specific funded reskilling program for workers displaced by automation. A pathway the young woman in my constituency can actually access it. We need it now. Jamaica needs one national digital skill plan, not 10 separate programs in 10 separate corners of the administration. One plan, one binding target. Jamaica needs it now. Jamaica needs a university commercialization framework so that research at UWI and UTech generates patents, licenses, and companies that create jobs in Jamaica rather than careers abroad. We need it now. Jamaica needs a new R&D investment target. We heard the minister say 1.5. We don't even know if the 1% he indicated a few years back has been met. We need a new target. Fund it, report it. Let WIPO find Jamaica's number on its platform. We need that now. Mr. Speaker, I want to now quickly reflect as a citizen who has the honor to sit in this parliament as an elected representative. Because what I want to speak about now is bigger than any one administration, bigger than any one side of this chamber. It is about government as an institution. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, there is no doubt that we are facing a challenge in the truest sense of being a participatory democracy. We are already seeing it. Voter turnout failing. Figures of 37% in the 2020 COVID election. But then 39% last year with no COVID. Engagement is declining. A growing number of Jamaicans, especially young Jamaicans, who have concluded that it does not matter who is in power because the system does not work for them regardless. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this is a verdict delivered not at the ballot, but by staying away from it. And it is a verdict that every single person in this chamber on both sides should find deeply troubling. Because when people disengage from government, the feedback loop that holds government accountable breaks. And when that breaks down, the incentive to deliver rather than merely announce weakens further. It is a cycle, it is dangerous. Mr. Speaker, and beyond the politics and partisan contention, the people simply want government to work. I get calls every day from the people of my constituency about garbage not collected, about street light bulbs not working. MP, the area is in darkness, about water pipes that are burst, about roads, and sadly, they don't really care whether it's MP road or parish council road. They want the road fixed. They want to go to hospital. They want the drains to be cleaned. They want to go to hospital and to be treated with respect and dignity. And they want to send their children to school to receive quality education and come back home safe to them. These are not extravagant demands. These are basic expectations of the social contract between the government and citizens. And when that contract is broken, Mr. Speaker, repeatedly and consistently, people do not just complain, they leave. They disengage. They conclude that government is for someone else.
Yes, yes.
Technology alone cannot restore that. A digital twin cannot. A GovCloud cannot. An AI readiness assessment cannot. Only delivery can.
Yes.
Consistent, visible, measurable delivery that reaches ordinary people in their ordinary lives. Mr. Speaker, movements across the globe indicates that the final element in the system of globalization, that is the free movement of people, is facing rejection, particularly in the West. And more developed economies with a growing anti-immigration wave is emerging. We see it in the UK. We see it in the North. We see it in France. We are even seeing it in Africa, in South Africa. Jamaica has to get it right. Though we are a migratory people, the world is closing in that area, but expanding in the sphere of digital economy and AI innovation. Jamaica has to get it right. For the students from Anata Bay, for the students from Marymount, for the students from St. Mary Technical in this gallery today, watching and listening, and the thousands who will be graduating shortly, Jamaica needs to get it right. For the thousands of BPO workers, Jamaica has to get it right. For the thousands of young professionals and tertiary graduates, Jamaica has to get it right. For the mass of the working class who are increasingly finding it difficult to make ends meet, even in the context of reported low inflation and low unemployment, Jamaica has to get it right. For the many Jamaicans across all walks of life who are finding that Jamaica is increasingly becoming unaffordable, Jamaica has to get it right. For the small and micro-sized business and individuals who want to set up their businesses or make their businesses grow and become efficient and productive, Jamaica has to get it right. Enough of the reviews. We heard more reviews announced today. Enough of what is to come. Enough of the announcements. Enough of the death by acronyms. We do not have the time. Jamaica has to get it now. Jamaica has to get it right. And we must lead that process from inside here. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hello, hello.
Well done, well done. You can clap.
Members of the
You
gallery,
can clap. You can clap.
members within the gallery, though you may get excited, you are not supposed to show it by clapping or cheering. House leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now ask that you recommit the items. I now ask that you recommit the items previously suspended and maintained. Oh, thank you very much, member, for your very exciting presentation. We'd like to thank the No, to be fair, you're correct. We received presentations today from the Minister without portfolio in the Office of the Prime Minister, with responsibility for science, technology, and special projects, and Member of Parliament for St. Catherine South Central. Also from the Member of Parliament for Westmoreland Eastern, Dr. Dayton Campbell, and Member of Parliament for St. Mary's South Eastern. I think all three presentations merit commendation. And I want to also appreciate the members for recognizing the importance of time. Thank you very much. I wish to now suspend the debate, and I ask that you recommit the items previously suspended.
The request is on the floor that the debate be suspended and a recommittal to the agenda items. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader. Sorry. Statement by Minister. Announcement.
Laid on the table of the House are the following: annual report and audited financial statements of the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority for the financial year 2022-2023. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Spectrum Management Authority for the financial year 2023-2024. Annual report of the University of the West Indies Mona campus for the academic year 2024-2025. The Integrity Commission's investigation reports into concerns that the following officers employed to the Clarendon Municipal Corporation failed to file their statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law and their indicative rulings. 1, Mr. Rohan Sherwood, a project officer, and Mr. Sheldon Allison, a compliance officer. Integrity Commission's investigation reports into concerns that the following officers formerly employed to the Cannabis Licensing Authority failed to file their statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to the law and their indicative rulings. Mr. Dwight Daly, a Director of Human Resource Management and Development, and 2, Mr. Philip Chambers, a Senior Director of Operations. Integrity Commission's investigation report into concerns that Mr. Ricardo Monroe, a manager, public-private partnership and privatization, employed to the Development Bank of Jamaica, failed to file his statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to the law and its indicative ruling. Integrity Commission's investigation reports into concerns that the following officers employed to the Forestry Department failed to file their statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to law and their indicative rulings. 1, Mr. Jason Gordon, a Director of Forest Resource Assessment. 2, Mr. Jakes Plummer, a Senior Compliance and Enforcement Officer. And 3, Mr. Clovin Daniels, an Inventory and Source Officer. Integrity Commission's investigation reports into concerns that the following officers failed to file their statutory declaration with the Commission for the year 2023, contrary to the law and their indicative rulings. 1, Mr. Michael Hurst, a forklift operator or current porter employed to the Bank of Jamaica. 2, Mrs. Michelle Toyloy Carter, an executive director formerly employed to the Devon House Development Limited. And 3, Ms. Tion Harvey, a temporary audit assistant formerly employed to the Betting, Gaming and Lotteries Commission. Statement on fiscal performance for the Independent Fiscal Commission for the fiscal year 2025-2026. Bank of Jamaica Monetary Policy Statement for the 6 months ended March 2026. the Bank of Jamaica Quarterly Monetary Policy Report for the quarters ending February 2026 and May 2026, the Auditor General's Department's audited financial statements for the Parochial Revenue Fund for the financial year 2023-2024, Auditor General's Department certified appropriation accounts under head 16049 from the Management Institute for National Development 2024-2025. And finally, the report of investigation concerning allegations of corruption, impropriety, and irregularities in the grant, variation, and revocation of firearm licenses and storage of firearms and ammunition at the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bills brought from the Senate.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate to the Honorable House of Representatives. I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the 22nd day of May 2026, the following bills were passed in the Senate without amendment: an act to amend the Conch Export Levy Act and an act to amend the Jamaica Dairy Development Board Act, expand the definition of milk in keeping with international standards, and provide for connecting matters. Honorable Thomas Tavares Finson, OJ, CD, KC, JP, President of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Petitions, papers, report from committees, notice of motion given orally.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move the following motion. Be it resolved that this Honorable House appoints a select committee comprising of the following members: Honorable Robert Montague, Chairman; Honorable Xavier Main; Honorable Donovan Williams; Honorable Tova Hamilton; Mr. Dwayne Smith; Mr. Julian Robinson; Mr. Dennis Gordon, and Mrs. Heather Miller Bennett, to sit jointly with a committee to be appointed by the Senate to consider and report its findings to the House of Representatives on a bill entitled "An Act to Establish a Regulatory Framework for Shared Communities to Allow Oversight by the Real Estate Board for the Use of and Operation of Community Common Property to provide for the regulation the rights and obligations of the proprietors and connected matters." Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which was given.
Question and answers to questions. Motion that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to the sitting of the House. Motion for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business.
Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
The question is that the standing order be suspended to enable the minister to take the motion, notice of which he gave earlier. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I ask that the motion, notice of which I gave earlier, be approved.
The question is that the motion, notice of which the minister gave earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
You have Mr. Speaker, would ask you, being that the time is 5:14, we wish to recommit questions and move a motion to allow questions to be asked at this time.
The request is on the floor. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it. Question and answer to questions.
Mr. Speaker, in keeping with standing orders 15, I intend to circulate these questions to the clerk of the House.
Public business.
Mr. Speaker, it is not intended for us to do any further business today, and as such, I ask that the House be suspended for a date to be fixed.